Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and I'm standing outside a house flip we have under contract to sell, and we just got the inspection objection on it. So I want to talk about what an inspection objection is, what the buyers are asking for, and how we can respond or deal with some of these issues. And some of these were issues that we kind of knew about, and some are not, but it's nothing crazy, but we can talk about how we respond to it. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So over the years, I've learned kind of how to handle inspections, objections, try and make the house right, but also, you can't always go crazy making a house brand new when it's an older house as well. So love the likes, love the comments, love the shares, keep those coming. Love seeing new subscribers as well. And we have lots of stuff going on. 3 new properties we're buying here in the next week or 2. So it's a good time to subscribe, including a laundromat and car wash and another country flip and some other cool stuff. This is a tree I debated whether to cut down or not, and now that the leaves are in, it's actually kind of cool, but also not at the same time. So quite a bit of it is dead, as you can see, but the part that isn't dead is pretty cool. And if it was all alive, it'd be awesome, but we did leave it kind of for the buyers to decide what to do with it. If you did cut out that dead part, it would still look kind of weird, but some people might like it, some people might not. But we were able to get the house under contract without taking out these other trees and doing a lot of work. So I bought this property directly from a seller I knew, and we're thinking we're gonna list it for him. Turns out we just bought it from them directly, and I have all the information on what we paid, repairs and all that stuff in one of my previous videos I'll link to below. But I believe I paid $280 for it. We had it listed for $389, I think. And took a couple weeks, but we got an offer, got it under contract, and that's what happens in a normal market. We're more into a normal market or a seller's market again now than we are a buyer's market. There's still too few houses for sale. But with this house, we didn't do a ton of work. The floors were already done. We did paint, we did the kitchen, and one of the things we debated back and forth, and Nikki, my project manager, and I debated this, and she was pointing out to me today that she said she thought we should have replaced these, and I didn't, is the windows. And so they are older windows. Some of them were plexiglass when we bought them. We didn't replace all of it with real glass. And as part of the inspection objection, they requested all the windows on the upstairs be replaced. And so that's a pretty expensive item. I think there's 10 windows that need to be replaced. If you don't do this one, and I kind of figured this one might not need to be done because it's not meant to be open, but if they do want this to be done, that would be 11, and that's a big window, which would be a very expensive one. And their reasoning was one of them wasn't opening. I think that window over there wasn't opening, although we did ask our contractor who worked on this if all of them were opening and working, and he said they were. And then the other thing, and I think I kind of saw this, none of them have their kind of weights. They usually have a string that comes out from here with the weights, and none of them have locks on them either. And so that's not the best thing in the world. And it would probably cost us around $4,000 to replace all of these, but that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is they're not going to be in stock sizes most likely, so we're probably going to have to wait 8 to 12 weeks to get them if we can get them that quick, because everything is still back ordered. And then when you install them, are you messing up trim, are you messing up paint, you're messing up exterior, what kind of mess is going to be made? So there's a lot of different issues to consider there. The other items they asked for was a breaker box. Needed a couple more breakers, I think, per their inspector. They wanted the roof looked at because it had a couple of shingles that were damaged. And they wanted the furnace cleaned and inspected. The furnace is brand new, but we get that all the time on our flips, even with a brand new furnace, because while we're working on them, a lot of dust, a lot of debris does get sucked up through the vents, and they can get dirty pretty quickly. Or it's just the inspectors just automatically always ask for that all the time, no matter how clean the properties are. So what we can do on this one, and what we typically do on inspection items, if they're easy, if there are any kind of safety issues, we'll usually take care of it. Electrical, HVAC, plumbing, we'll usually fix them unless it's something like they want the whole house replumbed or something and it doesn't need it, or all the electrical redone and it doesn't need it. But if it's easy stuff, we'll agree to it, we'll have those things done. We're gonna have the roof checked out and looked at. We're gonna have our electrician come over, make sure that's okay. We're gonna have our HVAC guy come over, clean it, make sure that's all good too. With the windows, that's another story because it's not just the cost, but the time and the issue of replacing them right now. So what we can do is we have a few options. One, we could just say no and hope they're cool with it. And if they're not, then we might have to put the house back on the market. Now, if we put the house back on the market, a lot of times you'll sell it for less than you would get with your first buyer. So usually in a normal market, your first buyer will have the highest offer price, you'll sell it for the most money. When a house falls out of contract, goes back in the market, people start to wonder what's wrong with it. Why did it fall out of contract? And it just, the longer it's on the market, people start to think, oh, it must be overpriced. It's been on the market this long. And they might miss that it was under contract for a long period of time. So if you can avoid going back on the market, it's usually better. And not to mention, this is set to close here in a couple of weeks. And if we do put it back on the market, you've got to wait for a new buyer, go through the whole process again, whole inspection again. And that can take a couple of months, which means more holding costs, more financing costs, more property taxes, all that you're paying. So it can be very expensive to put a property back on the market as well. So we try to avoid that if we can. Once in a while it happens, but for the most part, we try and keep our contracts together and not have properties go back on the market. So our other options are, we could agree to fix the windows, which would guarantee to solve the problem, but there's no way we can get it done in time. So we'd either have to extend closing quite a ways, or we'd have to say we'll get them done after closing, which is really tricky if we have our contractors coming in here while they're living here and all their stuff is here, and then are they gonna mess up their stuff? And that's tricky too. So that's not a very good option either. And then the third option is we can offer them a credit. So we can say, hey, we're not gonna replace these windows, but we'll offer you $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, something like that. So that's probably what we'll do. We haven't come up with an amount yet. Now, as far as inspection items go, usually what the inspection should be for is things that you can't see, right? As a buyer, you walk through a house, you say, oh, I don't like the kitchen, I don't like the bathroom, we can redo that, we can work on it, we'll live with it, whatever. It's not like you use your inspection to say, oh, I want this kitchen completely redone because I don't like it, because you should have seen that before you made your offer. So now these windows are a little tricky because obviously you can see that they're older when you walk through it. Some buyers are savvy and would know that, maybe some wouldn't, but for the most part, an agent should be able to tell them, hey, these windows are older too. Maybe they didn't know that they didn't have locks on them, that issue, so that could be part of it. So it's not like they should have known 100% that they wanted the windows replaced, but there's still some part of that. It's like, okay, you knew there were older windows when you bought it. So I don't know if we'll offer them, the full amount it would take to replace all of them, but I think we'll definitely offer them some kind of credit and see how they respond and go from there. And there is room to negotiate here too. We can say, hey, we'll do this. They can say, hey, no, that won't work, let's do this. It's not like set in stone where if we make one offer, they reject it, it's done, we can't come back and negotiate some. So that's typically how we handle inspection issues. We do try, we're remodeling houses, so we try to make it so there aren't inspection issues, but that rarely happens. Even when we hired an inspector to pre-inspect our homes before we sold them, at one point we had an inspector who came in before we rehabbed, came in after we rehabbed, he'd do 2 inspections. Even doing that, we still have buyers come in with their own inspectors, and they'd always find something they wanted to be done. So it's not like that eliminates it. Every inspector is different. They all find different things, and each person and buyer is different too on what they are comfortable with and not comfortable with as far as what that inspection says. So that's our plan. That's where we're at right now. So we'll respond to the seller. We'll see their agent, technically not them, or respond to the buyer. I got that all wrong. But respond to the buyer's agent. see what we can do there. Hopefully keep this deal together and go from there. The church house is under contract and selling this week as well. That one had no inspection issues, surprisingly enough. It's one of the rare ones that doesn't, and that property, was one we thought might have some inspection requests because it's a very old, very unique property. But that one's selling, and then we're buying 3 more, like I said. So lots of different stuff going on here on the channel. So, all right, there's some help, advice, tips on dealing with inspections. If you're using a good real estate agent, they should be able to help you out with that process as well. It can get kind of complicated knowing what to do, what not to do, what's typical, what's not typical, and agents can be a huge help in that. I've been a broker and agent for 20 years, and a lot of what I learned too was from my dad, who was an agent for many years before that, and working for banks. I sold many, many foreclosures over the years for many different banks, and they kind of dealt with inspection issues the same way. Some banks fixed them, some said no, but typically if it was stuff that buyers wouldn't know about, they'd be much more willing to fix them than if they knew there are issues already and we're just trying to beat them up on price during the inspection. All right, like I said, thanks for watching. Be back soon, and hopefully you're having a great start to the summer.